Okay. Well, let me turn our attention now to Jeff Gates. Let's talk about what the war log release was, which was mainly about talking about the wars and the consequences, the U.S.-led wars. And I'm talking about Iraq and Afghanistan. But this latest release talks of a looming war, in a sense, amongst a host of other topics. And some of the words that they used is conflict, and that is inevitable. I mean, what's your reaction to that?
Yeah, I think this is all part of advancing a narrative known at the macro level as a clash of civilizations. Suddenly we had a chance of some kind of settlement in the Israeli-Palestine sort of ongoing occupation of Palestine. And timing is everything when you see these sorts of operations ongoing. And I think that's the correct term for it, is an operation. Iran is now back in the news. Iran is now back above the fold. Iran is now the lead story in every media outlet now in the United States. So it's all Iran, 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 rather than Palestine, Palestine, Israel. So I think this is part of how you do this. If you want to know who is behind it, I think you do conventional legal analysis. You look for the means, the motive, the opportunity, and importantly in this case, who would have the stable nation-state intelligence inside our government to release these documents to bring bomb Iran back on the agenda just at the right time, and just at the right time to take Israel back off the agenda. I think it's to me, it's just transparent. The question is whether in the U.S. we have our media, our mainstream media, so compromised by this, it's very difficult to get through the story to get to the facts. But I think it's having the effect it's meant to have. It's meant to discredit the United States. It's meant to weaken a U.S. president, just as after the end of the midterm elections, where the House is being taken over. Eric Cantor, the new majority leader, has indicated, he will make sure that that this president does not pressure Israel toward a settlement. So I think it is indeed an operation.
Okay. Well, you mentioned Iran there, Franklin Lamb. I mean, let's look at the way the media has reacted to this and the way it's been reported. I mean, in some accounts, it's dangerous, don't you think? I mean, we're getting a quote from, let's say, AFP that says the leaks uncover a fixation on the Iranian threat, and I put that in quotes. What makes it an Iranian threat is the question that comes up, as well as the fear that conflict, which I mentioned before, is inevitable. I mean, here we are setting the mindset of the general public from a source that we're not even sure of its authenticity in many cases.
Well, that's true. I think part of that, we have to look to the mainstream media. And as Mr. Lenman, and I want to say publicly, I'm a big fan of the writings of both Mr. Gates and Mr. Lenman. I think that they're both correct in this, their analysis. I think, as Lenman said, the media, the mainstream media, gladly, I think, redacts things, blocks out names because they aren't sure. But also, there's a full court press going on, as I understand it, from the Obama administration to the media. Lots of calls to editors saying this is dangerous, you can put lives at stake, a lot of this kind of tension and hyperbole. I personally don't see that. I frankly think it's a healthy thing. I don't know, I don't think any of us do for sure, and with respect to what Mr. Gates said, about who's behind it, and I think there is increasingly, when you have a situation in a country, and ours particularly, and you've got our foreign policy, you're going to have whistleblowers. You're going to have people inside who have this access, and with the computers, they can blast it out and give it to somebody like Wikileaks, who incidentally are sort of heroes in a way to a lot of people. And what they say, Wikileaks says, and I don't have any evidence to second guess them on this, is they want to challenge the government. They want to ask questions and put this out here. I think it's curious that we don't have anything about Lebanon. I mean, we here in Beirut have been watching for that. And what about, as Mr. Gates said, Palestine and Israel? That's a little peculiar, but yet we're told there's a lot more coming.
Franklin Lamb, let me get Stephen Lenman onto that. Then, Stephen Lenman, why isn't that mentioned, as Franklin Lamb said, and of course our previous guest, about Israel and Palestine and, in addition, Lebanon?
Well, of course, there are many more documents to come. I'm sure there'll be more. Can I go back and focus on the possibility of, well, Iran back in the headlines again. Iran is always in the U.S. headlines. It ebbs, it flows. discussion about the so-called Iranian threat. I have a brief comment in my article today saying, if either Israel or the United States plan to attack Iran, do you think they'd announce it in advance? If they wanted to do it, they would just do it. They wouldn't say they were going to do it. Yeah. It would just happen. What Israel did to the Iraqi a nuclear reactor back in the early 1980s, they didn't announce it. They just bombed it. Yeah. I'm surprised there wasn't a bigger reaction out of Iraq because of that. But that's what they would do. The fact that they keep talking about this, I consider safe. Let them keep talking about it. The U.S. media always beats up on Iran. They beat up on Venezuela. They beat up on any other government that doesn't toe the U.S. mark. Whether Wikileaks is 100% legitimate or not, I honest to goodness don't know. But if I compare them to the New York Times, to CNN, to NBC, my God, I mean, they're 5-star compared to the propaganda that comes out of the U.S. media, which really is extreme. It really is disturbing.
Do you think that's the reason why it makes it believable to a lot of the audiences? Stephen Lemon?
They're hearing things they haven't heard before.
No, compared to the mainstream media.
You could never tune in CNN.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Or the mainstream media never reports material like WikiLeaks came out with. And the media only selectively decides what WikiLeaks material they'll talk about. So they highlight Iran. Well, what else? And a little snippet here about this world leader and this and that world leader. It goes right past people. But they highlight threats. And as Franklin said, and as Jeff said, they don't say a word about what Israel and the U.S. is doing to Palestine.
Okay.
The terrible crimes that literally go on there every single day.